Hello, friends. So good to be with you today. We are in chapter 19 of the book of Luke. Been taking one chapter a day throughout this entire month. Going to finish up on the 24th. Going to be a great time, I think, of just refreshing your mind, refreshing your heart about who Jesus is and what the message was for what we would talk about in December, and that is the birth of Christ. But I just wanted to kind of bring some emphasis to that, and I just felt like I just needed to do one chapter a day from the book of Luke. Luke is such a comprehensive book, and he covers so many things that are just invaluable. And I hope you'll take just a few moments with me. I'm just giving a brief overview of this chapter today, and I think it will help you. But what we're looking at, first of all, is the tax collector. You guys know him. That is Zacchaeus. You remember him, the wee little man? That's when I was a little kid. We used to sing that song or quote that. And he wanted to see Jesus, who he was. I think that's such a big deal. I want to see Jesus, who he was. Not just what he can do for me, but I want to see who he was. I think anytime you have that attitude, you grab the heart of God. Anytime you reach out to him, he always reaches out to you. I'm reminded of the two that was on the road to Emmaus after the crucifixion of Jesus. Do you remember that? The Bible said that they were, of course, everybody was confused. They didn't know what to think. And there they are on that road, and they're going and they're communing in their heart over the things that had happened. And it said Jesus drew near to them. Somebody said, why? Because he can't help it. Can I just give you a life lesson here from the standpoint of your relationship with God? If you'll talk about him, if you'll meditate about him, if you'll spend time and focus on him, he'll show up. I'm just telling you, he'll be drawn to you. He can't resist that. When you begin to commune in your heart about his goodness and his mercy and the things that happen, the Holy Spirit draws near to you because that's just what he does. But in this situation with Zacchaeus, chapter 19, it says, Jesus entered Jericho, of all places, this Jericho. Now this Zacchaeus was one of the children of Abraham. He was one of the children of promise, but there he was in Jericho as he was passing through, and it said a man by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector. Now, those of you that have been watching the new Jesus series that has come out, you realize as you begin to look at Matthew, the portrayal of Matthew, how much they were detested by the Jewish people, the tax collectors. Because they really felt like they betrayed their people. They dishonored their people by collecting taxes for the Roman Empire. And that's exactly what Zacchaeus was. He was a chief tax collector, and it said he was very wealthy. There was a lot of things that he had done that was really not quite very honest. He took advantage of a lot of people. But it said he wanted to see who Jesus was. And so because he was so short, he couldn't see over the crowd. So, you know the story. There was a sycamore tree, a sycamore fig tree that Zacchaeus climbed up in because he knew Jesus was coming that way. And what was so interesting, when Jesus reached the place, he reached that spot, he looked up and he saw Zacchaeus in the tree and he said, "Come down, Zacchaeus, because I'm supposed to stay at your house today." That's what we call a divine appointment and a divine contact. And so, of course, Zacchaeus, he immediately came down from the tree. He was just so overwhelmed with it. He gladly received him into his house. And of course, you know how that goes. When everybody began to see it, they said he's gone to be a guest for a sinner, somebody that's not worthy of us. And of course, I mean, it was the religious people that had done that. It was the scribes, the Pharisees, the teachers in the law. They murmured against him. So the people began to mutter. They began to murmur about him because he wanted to be the guest of a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood up and he said, now, of course, after Jesus was there, he said, "Look, Lord, here and now I'm giving half my possessions to the poor." Dear Lord. And he said, if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I'm going to pay them back 4 times the amount. I mean, can I just say this to you? When you have an encounter with Jesus, it affects you with what you do with your resources and your money. It just does. When you have an encounter with Jesus, somehow the first thing you want to do is to give. So it's just an internal, visceral response that just springs up inside you. And so he said, I'm going to pay back 4 times the amount if I've taken anything by false accusation. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to your house, because this man too, Zacchaeus, he said, is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and save that which was lost. And then Jesus gave a parable that I think that's very important. He says, while they were listening to this, he went on to tell this parable. He said, and this is because he's near to Jerusalem, and the people thought that the kingdom of God was going to appear at once. Everybody was just expecting, and you know that's true because no one really understood that Jesus was coming to set up the kingdom that he was. They genuinely thought the Messiah was going to break the yoke of Rome and all of the other people off of them. And they couldn't see the spiritual kingdom. They thought that the kingdom of God was going to appear all at once. And so Jesus said, no, let me show you how this is going to be. He said, a noble man of noble birth, he went into a distant country and appointed him to have himself appointed as king. Now, of course, he's talking about himself there. He said, a noble man of noble birth went into a distant country to have himself appointed king, and then he was going to return. So he called 10 of his servants, and he gave them 10 minas. And he said, put this money to work. You know, I read that. I was reading that this morning, and I thought, that's something that I think we don't do enough. I mean, I want you to stop, just pause for a second. He said, take this money and put this money to work. I would just encourage you that whatever resources that you get, don't just consume the money you have. A lot of people, that's all they do. They get money and the first thing they think of is, I'm going to consume it. I've seen people that were flat broke and they would get their income tax check. And what do? They go out and party. They have this crazy party and they spend it in about 30 minutes. I'm thinking, you have lost your mind. This is what you ought to do is right here. If you get some money in your hand, if you get increase, put it to work. Make your money go to work for you. There's a real lesson here that you shouldn't just quickly pass over. So he said, put this money to work and until I come back. Now, the things that he's given you, it may not have been money, but it's time, talent, and energy. Those are the three resources that God's given every one of you. And you can do two things with it. You can either spend it or you can invest it. Your time, talent, and your energy. You can either spend it or you can invest it. But a lot of people just spend it. And God's saying, I've entrusted something in you. I gave you talents. I gave you resource. I gave you abilities. And I want you to put it to work. Do something until I come back. And well, his subjects hated him, and they sent a delegation after him saying, we don't want this man to be our king. Well, verse 15 said he was made king, however, and he returned home. There wasn't anything they could do to stop it. And so he sent to his servants whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had done to gain any money back for him. And the first one said, sir, your mina has earned me 10 more. Now listen to me. He said, well done, thou good servant. His master replied this and said, because you've been trustworthy over a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. Now, let me just throw this out here to you, just simply for you to chew on. What you do with your time, your talent, and your energy in this life is going to have a tremendous impact on what you do in the life to come. I believe, somebody says, well, we're just going to go dangle our feet in the river of life for 1,000 years. No, you're not. Where do you get that? Where in the world do you get that? I'll tell you what's going to happen is you're either going to be put in school or you're going to be put to work. You're going to go accomplish something. The very fact that you have stewardship says that God's going to hold you accountable for that. For what reason? Because he's going to reward you accordingly. You're going to receive for the things that you've done. And that receiving isn't just so you can go hang out, but you're going to be placed in charge of God knows what. I mean, I guess I could Some people that think that the only thing that God ever created was just this little tiny planet Earth, you're mistaken. I mean, if ever there's anything, they have this James Webb telescope right now that has gone out, and it is seeing things that are just beyond anything they could imagine. As far as you can imagine, there are galaxies and galaxies and galaxies, every one of them with millions of stars, and every one of those stars with planets like ours revolving around them. I mean, that's all the handiwork of God. God did that. God set those stars in place. God set those galaxies in motion. God did all of that. Somebody says the Big Bang Theory. Well, yeah, I believe that. I believe when God said, let there be, and bang, there it was. That's where it exploded. This dimension exploded in that direction at that time. And we begin to see galaxies and all kinds of things that are done. Well, all of that, I promise you, it's more than just, if all of that is dead, then God's just the God of the dead and not the God of the living. There's much more going on, and your responsibility is going to be to take advantage of all of the handiwork of God, whatever that might be. That's the reason for the resurrected body. See, your body right now is kind of like your earth suit. It gives you dominion in this plane that we're in. But you get outside this, you get in the water, and you don't have dominion there. You got to get help. You go up in space. You got to get help. You can't exist there because you don't have the body for it. But your resurrected body gives you dominion in every realm that God ever created. That's the reason for the resurrected body. It's something that God wanted you to walk in dominion no matter what he created, no matter where it was, no matter the condition of it. That resurrected body gives you dominion in that area, just like your resurrected body gives you dominion and access right here on this little surface of this little tiny planet we live on. So I want you to understand that this parable signifies to you that there's much more out there than just this. You know, you've been faithful over this little. He gave you 10 minas. He gave you just a little bit. He gave you a little responsibility, and he said, because you've been faithful over that, I'm going to give you 10 cities. Now, what the heck does 10 cities mean? Places that are populated, places of dominion. I'm just telling you, what you do here is going to affect what happens there. Do not underestimate that. That's the purpose for your stewardship. So that man said, because of that, he said, I've earned 10 more. He said, well done, good servant. Because you've been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. And of course, the second came and said, your mina has earned me 5 more. His master answered, take charge of 5 cities. See, that's still fascinating to me. And another one came and said, sir, here's your mina. I mean, I didn't do anything with it. I just kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because I knew that you were a hard man and you take out where you didn't put in, you reap where you didn't sow. His master replied something to him. He said, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. See, this man, because of the abuse of his stewardship, that was considered wickedness. He said, you knew that I was a hard man. You knew that I took out where I didn't put in. You knew I reaped where I didn't sow. So why didn't you put my money at least in a deposit where I could have got some interest back with it? Well, you could have done something with it. Instead, all you did is sit around all day long and watch Netflix. I mean, come on. You are called to more than that. I see people and I worry about them so much. You can't even get them to show up to church on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning. I'm thinking, have you guys seriously, have you lost it? Have you gone into some coma where you're so self-absorbed in nothing that's going to bring anything back? You need to invest yourself in things that have value. You need to invest yourself in things that can bring a return to you. That's very important. Don't be lazy with what God's given you. Be diligent with what God's given you. You can believe me now or you can believe me later. But it's very important that you understand that your diligence in this life is going to pay off big time in that life. And your laziness in this life is going to pay big dividends in that life. You know, you're just going to receive, well, I don't know what you're going to, nothing obviously, but it's going to be terrible for you. So get busy. Be diligent. Stop sitting around. And again, get yourself in church. Now, and I'm not just saying that because I pastor a church. You get yourself in church, and here's the reason why. Church for a couple of reasons. Number one, it establishes you in relationship and accountability with somebody else. You need that. I'm just telling you. The Bible said, don't you forsake the assembling of yourself together. Because a lot of people, they get separated, and suddenly there's no accountability. You know, it's kind of like going to the gym. If I've got a partner I'm going to the gym with, I'm much more apt to run with it. But you just leave me by myself, and believe me, I can lay in that bed and I'm thinking, I don't feel like going today. And I don't go. And pretty soon I'm not going at all. So you need accountability. Secondly, it lays a foundation for you and a foundation for your family. It gives you something that you're building on. It's much more than just something. This isn't a club. It is a spiritual powerhouse that you're building a foundation on. And then thirdly, it works toward your family. This is generational. You are passing the baton of values to the next generation. You know, it's kind of like the old timers used to say, let me just tell you something. When you come to my house, if you're there on Sunday morning, we're going to church. Yeah, we are going to church. That is an established fact. But most people, just anything. You know, one kid gets a cold and 9 people have to stay home and wipe their nose. Or like that fellow said, I'm sorry I couldn't come to church. I had to run to Walmart. You know, I'm just thinking people will use every excuse imaginable. But it's important that you make the decision right now to be diligent with your resources. And I'm talking about your money, but your life is much more than just money. Money is simply leverage. All it is a tool. You have to keep it in its right perspective. There's much more to that. And so this is a time to do that. And this parable that Jesus gave should alarm all of us as far as our responsibilities or lack thereof. You think you're going to mess around and just, it doesn't matter what I do. And I get amazed. People say, well, I'm just going to go live the rest of my life alone at the lake. I think, really? Your life is more than that. Your responsibility is more than that. The relationships you have are the very gift that God gives you, because that's where your gifts are expressed. The gifts God gives you, they're expressed through the individuals that are in need. You should never unhook from life. When you unhook for life, you're done. That's why a lot of people can retire, and then 30 minutes later after they retire, they're dead. And I'm thinking, why? What happened? Well, there's just something in them that they just quit life. And you know what? Life quit them. So you can't afford to do that. Come on, pull yourself together. This excuse making, this is nonsense. Well, I might catch something. Really? Come on, get over yourself. Take some vitamins, do some exercise, get out among life and start living life. I'm not going to live the rest of my life hiding in a corner someplace. If that defines me, then what in the world am I doing? We're going to have to be better than that. And I'm calling you out on this today. I mean this very seriously. You lay around, you're going to lose. You're going to lose your life, and you're going to give account for it in the life to come. So it's important that you apply yourself. Apply yourself to your family, apply yourself to your church, apply yourself to your community, apply yourself to your job, apply yourself to the next generation. Somebody's got to pass the baton to them, and they can't do it if they're just laying back with their feet propped up all day. If that's the baton, then woe to the next generation. Wow. So, Jesus just said that this king, he just said, you should have at least taken what I've given you, just put it in where it could get a little bit of interest, anything. But then he said to those standing by, he said, I want you to take his mina away from him. Take it away from him and give it to the one that has 10. Really? Yeah. You know what that says to me? The person that is doing, God is going to give more to them. You know, we sit around and say, oh, God. Okay, I realize I'm supposed to be giving an overview. Bear with me for just a second. There's so many people that sit around and they say, oh, God, open the door, open the door. Dear Lord, open the door. They'll write scriptures on the door. They'll rebuke the door. They'll try to cast the devil out of the door. They'll just, God, why won't you open the door? Well, the fact is, the door's not going to open until you put your hand on the knob. You're going to put your hand on the knob and turn it. In other words, whatever you put your hand to, that's what's going to flourish. You will never go through anything, any door, if you won't put your hands to it. When you're going into a place, don't sit around and say, well, I'm just waiting on some door to open for me. I see people come in church. I just can't find any place to be used. They never did anything. Sat there like a bump on a log. I've seen people come in after church starts, leave before it's over, and say, I can't find a place to hook up. They don't attend any special functions. They don't go to the women's ministry, the men's ministry. They don't hook up with the children. I mean, they don't do anything. And then they wonder, well, how come doors don't open for me? Because nothing is going to open for you until you put your blooming hands on it. Do something. Come on, I don't care if it's saying, where's the vacuum cleaners in this place? What can I do to help? What can I do? Can I serve somebody else? Can I take somebody food? What? Because every door leads you to another door. Don't discount and say, that door's not worthy of me, because that little door will take you to a bigger door. But you're never going to get to the bigger door if you don't put your hands on what's in front of you. So, it's time to stop making excuses. And that's what he said. He said, I want you to take this away from this guy, this one, and give it to the fellow that has 10. Give it to the fellow that's doing something. They said, well, Lord, he's already got 10. And Jesus replied, I'm telling you that everyone who has more is going to be given, and the one who has nothing, from him is going to be taken away that which he has and what he thinks he has. You sit around, I'm just telling you something. If you don't do what I'm saying here today, you're going to lose the farm. You're going to lose it all. You're going to lose it all. Those that sit around and don't apply themselves and do nothing but make excuses, God's going to take away from you what you have, and he's going to give it to the person that's doing something. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a Messiah complex and do everything, but you can do something. You can do something. The woman that poured the oil on Jesus that time, what the Bible say concerning her, because they complained about her. And Jesus said, leave her alone. She's done what she could. See, she did what she could with what she had where she was. That was impressive to God. So you can't do everything, but you can do something. And if you're doing nothing, it's because you made the choice to do nothing. Sorry about that, but baby, that's where it stands. And God's going to rip away from you everything that you've got, and he's going to give to somebody that's doing something else. And then you can sit in the corner and feel sorry for yourself, but that's okay. You'll go through eternity. I don't know what you're going to do with you, but you're going to have to get your act together. You're flat going to have to put it together, or God's not going to mess with that. He's just not going to mess it. And so Jesus just simply said that. Everyone that has more is going to be given. To him that has nothing is going to be taken away from that which he has or even thinks he has. And those enemies of mine who didn't want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. Now that's what he said there in verse 27. I didn't make that up. Jesus said that. Before we go on, can I just express to you, that is serious. There are conversations that Jesus is having that has eternal consequences, life consequences. That was very serious what Jesus just said, and we must take it seriously. Well, all right. Verse 28, the Bible said there that after Jesus had said this, he went on ahead going up to Jerusalem, and as he approached Bethany at the hill called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, said, I want you to go into the village ahead of you. You're going to find a colt that is there, is tied up, And no one has ever ridden on that one before. And I want you to bring it to me. Untie it. If anybody asks you, what are you doing? Say, the Master needs this. The Lord needs this. And so those who were sent ahead, they'd found just exactly what Jesus had said. As they were untying it, the owners came and said, what are you doing? And they said, well, the Lord needs this. The Lord has need of this. And so they brought it to Jesus. They threw their coats, their cloaks, their garments, they threw them on the colt, and they put Jesus on it. And as he went along, people spread their garments in the way, and they spread them on the road. And when he came near to the place where the road goes down into the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began to joyfully praise God. They were with a loud voice with all miracles for all the miracles that they'd seen, and they were saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in earth and glory in the highest." I mean, that's what they were shouting from the top of their voice. And of course, the Pharisees didn't like that. They don't like anything. Religious people don't like anything. I'm so tired of religious people. I just am. I'm up to here. Well, they were in a crowd, and they said, "Teacher, you need to rebuke your disciples." Yeah, of course. And Jesus said, "I'm just going to tell you something. If they keep quiet, these stones around here that you're looking at, they're going to cry out." And then he approached Jerusalem. And he wept over it. He wept over it. And he said, if you, even you, Jerusalem, if you'd only known on this day what God had offered for your peace, you would have embraced it. But he said, now it's hidden from your eyes. The day's going to come when your enemies build an embankment against you, and they encircle you, and they hem you in on every side. You and your children are going to be collapsed within those walls because you didn't recognize the time of God's coming to you. I like what the King James said. It said you didn't know the day of your visitation. How many times have we missed out on things because we didn't recognize the time of visitation? Religion will blind you to that. It will. You get so religious you can't see anything else. You get so boxed in. And God said, Jesus said, you didn't know the time of your visitation. Therefore, it's hidden from you, and you missed it. You missed it. Man, I would hate that. Oh, God came to me. God offered himself, and I missed it because I didn't recognize the time of my visitation. How awful that must be. Well, then verse 45 said, Jesus entered in the temple courts, and he found people that were buying and selling, and they were hustling the people. They knew that there was going to be sacrifices that needed to be purchased, and so they were jacking up the price and basically just making it a market. It left the context of being a place of worship, and it just became a hustle for people. And so he just started driving out everybody, and he said, it's written, my house is going to be a house of prayer. But he said, you have transformed this into a den of thieves, into a den of robbers. Man, he was so hot about that. And every day he was teaching in the temple. Every day he was teaching in the temple. He never left the word. The word continually flowed out of him. But the chief priests, the teachers of the law, the leaders, and this was what was so amazing to me, because they saw the miracles they did, they saw the things that were done, and it said that they were trying to kill him. That's all they were doing. They were plotting. We're not looking at miracles. We're just trying to figure how we can kill him. How sad is that? But it said, verse 48, it said they couldn't find any way to do it because all the people hung on his words. Boy, it was intense. These chapters, as we're moving forward, becomes more and more intense. I'd really like for you to spend some time in meditation about that, and please take my exhortation seriously. I feel unctioned of the Lord to say what I said to you today, of the importance of your stewardship and you being diligent with it and not putting it off. Again, if I could go back and say, Well, there's no opportunities for me. Then take the lowest seat and become a servant. Carry somebody's bag. I'll mow the yard. I'll do anything. I will wash feet. Basically, of course, now people don't now. I don't need my feet washed, but I need my lawn mowed. You know what I'm saying? Take the role of a servant and begin to serve, and God will open doors for you that you never imagined. So don't lay in self-pity. Come on, it's time to get up, get to work. The world needs you. It needs you. I say that with all my heart. You're not an accident, and you're not just a duplicate. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. No one's like you. No one. Oh my God. You say, well, I've got problems. I don't even know anybody that don't have any problems. But isn't it wonderful that in our problems that we know that we're loved by Him and received by Him, and He uses us not where we wish we were, but where we are. God's not, quit. It's your responsibility to catch the fish. The Holy Spirit will do the cleaning. He'll help you through whatever. Let's get to work. We've got things to do. Okay, I'm sorry. I got way outside my boundaries today, but I just felt impressed of the Lord to share that with you. Tomorrow, we're going to come back. We're going to go into the 20th chapter of the book of Luke. It's really wrapping up. I hope you'll join me. And this one today, I think this is important. I really feel like this is a word for somebody. You might forward this to somebody and just tell them, say, just listen to it all the way through. Hopefully it will challenge them and it'll help them move into a position of completion for their life. Okay? Thank you for joining me. Listen to me. Thank you for being my friend. I mean that. Thank you for being my friend. I love and appreciate you guys more than I can say. I mean that. Okay, I'm out of here. I'll plan on seeing you tomorrow. I want you guys to have a wonderful, wonderful day. Love you. Bye-bye.